the Anarchical and Revolutionary Crimes Act 1919, otherwise famous as the Rowlatt Act 1919. This is the topic we are going to discuss today. In 1914, the First World War started, and this World War ended in 1918. All of us know that. When the World War started, the British government in India dragged India into the First World War without consulting the Indian leaders, without consulting the people of India, without consulting the Indian National Congress, without consulting the Indian Muslim League. And that is why the people of India were annoyed with the British government in India. Okay, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi returned to India from South Africa after successfully experimenting truth and non-violence against the British. In the same year, the British government in India introduced a law to control the revolutionary activities of the Indian freedom fighters. And the law was titled as the Defence of India Act 1915. Its provisions were very tough. The British police was given enormous powers against the freedom fighters, the revolutionary freedom fighters of India. But the Defence of India Act 1915 failed to some extent in its objective to control the revolutionary activities of the Indian leaders during the First World War. In 1919, a committee was constituted to review the provisions and the effectiveness of the Defence of India Act 1915 and recommend further provisions to control the activities of the Indian freedom fighters, particularly the revolutionaries. The Rowlatt Committee, which was chaired by a British judge, Sir Sidney Rowlatt, gave its reports, and these reports were introduced in the Central Council of Government of British India in Delhi. It was introduced on 6th February 1919. When this act was introduced, it was called the Black Act by the Indians, Black Bills by the Indians. Particularly, Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya and Muhammad Ali Jinnah resigned from the Central Legislative Council, which was in New Delhi. Though some Indian leaders resigned from the council and some other leaders protested the provisions of the act was passed on 18th March 1919. When the provisions of the act were introduced on 21st March 1919, there was nationwide protest against these provisions. Basically, there were three things for which the Indians protested this act. The Indians called it the Black Act. Provision number 1 was the British police in India was given full power to arrest any Indian at any time, at any place, without any warrant. And number 2, that arrested Indian under the Rowlatt Act by the British police could be detained for 2 years for interrogation in jail. Number 3, that arrested Indian under the Rowlatt Act had no right to appeal, no right to vakil, or no right to give any dalil. Due to these 3 provisions, the Indians protested this act. The Indians called this act as the Black Act. On 6th April 1919, nationwide hartal was organized, processions were organized, marches were organized, strikes were organized, and people showed their anger against the British, against the Rowlatt Act. In Punjab, Satyapal and Saifuddin Kichlu, the 2 very prominent congressmen, organized a very huge procession against the provisions of the Rowlatt Act to indicate, to convey the anger of the Indians. Actually, Punjab was the most important center of protest against the Rowlatt Act. The British police arrested Satyapal and Saifuddin Kichlu, and secretly these 2 leaders were sent to Dharamsala, where they were detained. On 13th April 1919, it was Baisakhi festival, the harvest festival of Punjab. The people from Amritsar and nearby areas had gathered in the Jallianwala Bagh to celebrate Baisakhi. In the same park, some freedom fighters had also gathered to protest the provisions of the Rowlatt Act. General Dyer got information regarding this crowd in the park. He came there with troops and ordered firing. This is popularly famous as the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. All of you know that, you have studied in class 8 also. After the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, the Indians started protesting the British rules in a very aggressive manner, which was against the principles of Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi decided to suspend his protest, and he suspended it. In 1922, the Repressive Law Committee report was published. On the basis of that report, rather we can say on the basis of the recommendations of that report, the British government repealed the Rowlatt Act, the Indian Press Act, and 22 more acts. So, we can say that the Rowlatt Act and its provisions had long effect, historic effect on the Indian freedom struggle. I hope all of you have understood this topic. Thank you very much. God bless you all.